All right, we are back today and we are continuing our portrait project. Remember, this is a monochromatic color scheme, which means one color with black to darken it and water to lighten it. And so sometimes that means the color shifts quite a bit. So I'm using the warm red for my portrait, which is this orangey red. And when you add black to that orangey red, it turns this dark brown. So I have, it will end up being a fairly realistic skin tone looking version of the portrait. For my other example, here I am using green, and you'll see that green with black looks different than green without black, but there's not as much of a complete color change in the portrait. So just depending on what color you're using, you have more color change or less color change in your project, but we are just using one single color with black to make it darker and water to make it lighter. So for both of these examples, I worked just kind of off and on throughout the class period yesterday only. So this gives you some idea of how far I was able to get yesterday. And then a couple of things while you continue to paint today that you might find useful. So you'll notice in both cases, I've added some of the dark shadow along the side of the face in the hair. What this does is helps me balance out if I have the shadows on the face dark enough. And kind of allows me to continue to move forward with painting. One other thing that you can do is you can use your camera or your Chromebook, and you can set your camera to black and white, and you can compare your painting to your photo. So here's my comparison of my painting and my photograph through my cell phone lens right now. And what this does is it allows me to see that my shadows are definitely not dark enough in my portrait. Okay, so I can see that I need to go back and kind of deepen some of these shadows, particularly up here around her eye. I can do that same test with my other portrait, and I can kind of see the same thing. It can be deceptive. You can think that you have your shadows dark enough, and really you don't. And this is a great way to kind of test today while you're painting to see if the work you did yesterday is enough. So I can see I need to deepen the shadow here on this inside edge of his eye, and probably a little bit around this outer edge too. So that is part of what I'm going to work on today, is thinking about making some of those shadows deeper. It is why I put in a dark, is to get closer to the depth of the shadow that I need for the face. So if you're struggling to see like how dark something is actually getting or ending up, you can add in a small dark area on your project just so you can see. So I can, but I don't want to add a lot of detail. So I've painted in his eye, and I've painted in the side of his hair, and I could do a little bit of the hair. Tomorrow we're going to talk more about the hair, so don't paint all the hair. But I can go ahead, and I know that this is dark because I can look at that on the portrait, and I can just paint that shadow in because I know that I will need that. And like I said, we will work more tomorrow specifically with hair and painting different types of hair. But if you are struggling to see if your shadows are dark enough, this can be one thing that you can do. You can also put in a little dark for the eye so that you have some frame of reference for how dark the shadows around the eye are going to need to be. So that should help me a little bit kind of as I'm working forward. Other than that, today your job is the same as yesterday. You are going to continue to paint. And remember, we're applying the paint in such a way that I'm adding paint in sections. I am cleaning my paintbrush out, drying it off, and now I am moving this paint along. So it's like I'm putting in a puddle of paint and I'm borrowing from that puddle to make my painting happen. So I could see when I had a black and white photo that this portion was definitely not dark enough. So I'm going back to try to fix some of those sections that I looked at with my camera in the black and white and could see that they were lacking in value structure. And that is what you need to do as well today. Check in a black and white camera. Take a photo, see what your portrait is looking like, making sure that as you're moving this paint, you're cleaning your paintbrush off. Little shadow out here. And tomorrow, like I said, we will talk more about how to work specifically with hair. And so make sure that you're using the class today to work on your painting.